lift themselves up and integrate themselves into the communities. Would you have any suggestions for how, particularly the issue of jobs, can be
I think
helped?
it would help if some organisations were created by people with experience in recruitment and training. Somebody with experience in reaching out to businesses and saying, look, we can help you to find people who can work for you with this trade, with that trade. We do have systems like this in England.
And these kind of refugee run businesses are also another example of how it's kind of serving those needs within the society as well.
Yeah, I think we need to focus on that because men want to provide for their families. And I've seen men break in front of me because they're having to ask for somebody else to feed their children.
Right, because ultimately people don't want to be continually reliant on the organization. They want to break away from the organizations and be able to give back if they can.
And the whole issue of learning Greek could have been written into the asylum system, where they have to learn Greek. Because unfortunately with the laws here, this is their first safe country and they will not get the opportunity to leave. And many of them are now, they get their asylum, they get their passport. The loophole that they use is they are going on holiday to visit somebody in the Schengen area, but they never return. They lose their papers, they apply for asylum. A small percentage of people do this, but they're being returned now. And there's people just in camps waiting to be deported. Greece is going to have another crisis on its hands if something happens and all those families are returned here. Greek people are under the... They think that every person that's arrived and claimed asylum here is still here. And they are not. Massive numbers have left.
Yeah, and initially one of the issues, I think, with implementing any kind of program was that there was an incentive in place not to register at the first countries. I remember reading about that in terms of like when people were coming in through Lampedusa, I think, in Italy, and then through the, I think, early on coming through Spain, then a little bit later coming through Italy, and then early in the years where it started coming through Greece. Because the first country you registered in would have to be basically the country that provided for you and helped set you up.
The first safe registered country. That's why Turkey, you cannot apply for asylum in Turkey because it's classed as not a safe country. It only provides temporary protection.
Even after the EU deal? Oh, like is that the legal definition after the EU deal?
Yeah, it's not a safe country. They're only given temporary protection. They're not asylum, which is why not many families have been removed from Turkey. Do you remember when the EU-Turkey deal came in and they said to us in the videos that for every person that was stopped from arriving to Greece, Turkey would send a person from Turkey into the EU? There was a catch to that, and the catch was that anybody, it was only anybody who had already applied for reunification from Turkey into the EU to go to join their families. And it was only ever something like 700
who were stopped, you mean?
Who were sent from Turkey. Even one, it was a one-for-one system. Do you remember the little lifts in the video that said, for every person we save coming to Greece, we will send another person into the EU.
Ah, okay, of Turkish citizenship, right?
A refugee in Turkey with protection who has already applied for reunification to another country.
I see. Yeah.
And only 700 were ever taken out of Turkey on that scheme, despite, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pushbacks from Turkey to Greece. It wasn't a one-for-one at all, because the clause was that it was only for refugees who had already applied via the UNHCR for reunification to their family. They didn't make it very